used JavaScript objects, really. We've used them incidentally, but we haven't used them on purpose yet. You may remember them from your Code Wars, because the last several required you to use them, despite the fact that the Code Academy tutorials did not cover them. Sorry about that. It used to. We didn't know that when we posted the prereqs. But hey, it was good for you to try to figure something out on your own. So, objects in JavaScript. They are a collection, a little bit like an array, similar to a hash map in some languages, or a hash in others, or a map in others. They're key value pairs. So let's have a look. Let's do a little code pinning. If you want to follow along, I will put this in Slack. Or you can just watch ye darn screen. So we have square brackets for arrays, right? We have curly braces for objects. So let's make a new object called meals. Okay, now we have one. And they're key value pairs. So at the key breakfast, the value, what you have for breakfast, Nick? Did you eat breakfast?
I had rice.
Rice. Comma. What'd you have for breakfast? I can't see your name tag, I'm sorry. And I don't remember. Oh, what's your name?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot to put it up. My name's Nolan.
Nolan, I knew that. Nolan Christian. What'd you have for breakfast, Nolan? I mean lunch.
I had a sandwich.
Lunch. Twammiches. Dinner. What's for dinner, Mia? Pasta. So, comma-separated list of keys and values. Interestingly, you can leave a trailing comma on the last one. That's not a syntax error. Perfectly fine. And I like to do that for a couple of reasons. One, when I come back and add another one underneath there, I'm not going to forget to go put the comma on the line before, because it's already there. Furthermore, and this may not be a real obvious benefit to you at this point, but if I add another item underneath it and get tracks the changes, it'll show that only this line changed. If I went back and had to add a comma here, it'll show both of these lines as having changed when all that changed was I added a comma. So I just leave the trailing comma on there. There's no harm in it. A lot of businesses or teams will have a style that they prefer, either do or don't include them. But I'm going to be including them as long as I remember to. So that's great. So what can we do with this? How do we get those values out of there? Let's try. Well, tell me, how would I get the string rice out of there? Somebody knows. Yeah. Meals.breakfast. Let's try console logging precisely that. Console log meals.breakfast. Indeed. So the object dot the key gives me back the value at that key. So these things are called properties. Breakfast is a property of meals. And each property has a key and a value. So when I refer to an object property, or I say something like, every HTML element has a property called text content. Or I'll say, it's a property, not a function. Yeah, it's one of these things. Cool. Anybody know another way to get it out of there? Yeah, square brackets. Just like an array. You can use that. So console log meals square bracket. Now if I just typed lunch in here, it's going to expect there to be a variable called lunch. So that's going to raise an error. It's the string lunch. Twamages. So these keys are actually strings. And you could write them that way if you wanted. But as long as the keys follow the naming rules for JavaScript variables, no spaces, no dashes, stuff like that, then the quotes are optional. And it reads a lot nicer that way. Also, as long as you follow those same rules, not only can you leave the quotes off when you're defining it, that means you can use the dot syntax. But the key could be any string. So it could be the string second breakfast. Any hobbits in here? Yeah, what did you have for second breakfast today, Keith? Had what?
A protein cookie.
Protein cookie. Just what a hobbit needs. So, obviously, I can't say meals dot second space breakfast, right? That's not going to work. So I have to use the square brackets then. Just like I had to use the quotes up here. But both perfectly valid ways to access the properties of an object. So what if I had dinner in... Sure, we can log that just to make sure I'm not lying to you. You can trust me. Protein cookie. What if I have a variable called next meal that is the string dinner? And I want to use that. Maybe I don't know what this is equal to. Maybe it was passed in as an argument or something. How do I use that to get pasta out of this meals object? So what is next meal? It's a string. So given a string, pass it in square brackets. Yep. Meals. Next meal. Pasta. Yay. Make sense? Yeah.
Could you use this to make an object into a dictionary?
So, I mean, they kind of are. More or less. They're similar. Yeah.
I don't think I understand what you did last.
Okay.
Meals next meal.
Right. So, we know that these keys are actually strings, right? Even though I don't put quotes around them. And we can get them out using square bracket syntax by just passing that string in. So, here I just happen to use a quoted string, but if I have a string saved to a variable, there's no reason I can't use that variable inside the square brackets. So this is exactly the same as though I had written dinner in there. Because any place I can do that, that's just a string. So any place I can do that, I could also throw a variable that happens to contain a string. Now I could not say meals dot next meal, right? Because that will look for a property that's actually named next meal, not dinner. This is no longer the variable next meal. This is now the string next meal. To help? So I can use dots and square brackets to get things out of an object. Can I use them to set things on the object? Let's see. Meals dot dinner. Change my mind. Or maybe I just want to be more specific. Joy, what's your favorite pasta? Oh yeah, chicken Alfredo. Does that work? Is that valid? Let's try it out. Do the thing, please. Oh, I didn't console log it. Yeah. There you go, chicken Alfredo. Yep. You can totally do that. Meals.dinner equals that. That changes it. Ah, but what about this? Meals dot snacky time equals, what'd you have for snacky time today, Zach?
Well, nothing.
Wool, nothing. What do you think? Can I do that? Let's see. Console.log meals.snacky time. Wool, nothing. Totally can. You can add properties that weren't already there this way as well. You just set new properties. You can. If this is too much right now, just ignore this next part. But since you asked, yeah, you can just say delete meals.snacky time, and that key will go away. Yeah.
So if after you like added the snacky time, if you were to like print off the constant meals, would that show like a fourth thing that says snacky time on it?
Console.log meals. Get a little more room here. Yep. Breakfast, dinner, lunch, second breakfast, snacky time. It is now part of it. Yes, indeed. Keith?
Can this be done to like pre-done objects, for example, like a div?
Just like make up a totally new thing.
Yeah. Or delete text content?
I don't know what happens if you try to delete one. That seems like a bad idea, though. It seems like fun. Maniac. Const div equals document dot create element div dot snacky time equals, what did the div have for snack? A span, probably, knowing divs. Console log, whoops. Console log div dot snacky time span. Yep, perfectly happy to add new properties. I'm not going to try the delete thing. I suspect it'll give you an error, but don't do it. I mean, if you want to experiment, knock yourself off. Knock yourself off? Yeah, or out. Just knock yourself any which way. Delete div dot text content. I don't see an error. But I bet it would stop working if it were on the page. All right, so objects. Good times. So what if we want a list of all of the keys that were in that object? Now we've got more than we started with, right? What if we want a list of all those? It'd be nice to have them as an array, because those we can loop over. You can use a for each loop, and there are some other ways of going over all of the properties of an object, but they're a little error prone because of inheritance in JavaScript, which we won't talk about in great detail right now. But it doesn't always work great. There is a new kind of loop that does kind of solve that problem, but it's not super widely supported. And I want to show you this thing. So we could get all of these keys, well, all of the keys that are on the object, including the ones we added later, as an array using the built-in function O Object.keys. Just pass it any object. Oh, it's doing this thing. Yeah, why does it do that sometimes? Well, you see it? You see the array? So now I've got an array of all of the keys. So I could loop over that. So let's say const keys equals object.keys meals. Then I could loop over it, right? For let I equal 0, for doing a counter, we do need to use let, not const, because we are reassigning it every time through. I less than keys.length. I++ does use the same syntax as other C-like languages. And let's do something really obnoxious like alert keys sub I. Breakfast, second breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacky time. Cool. But what if I wanted the values? How do I do that? Inside this loop. Meals bracket. Keys bracket I, right? Meals square bracket 0 isn't anything, right? It's not an array. Meals bracket breakfast is. And we established that keys, the array of keys, bracket I would be breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacky time, second breakfast, etc. So if we say const current meal, then yeah, we could say meals. Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry I ever was born. Meals square bracket current meal. Rice, protein cookie, twamwiches, chicken Alfredo, wool nothing. Do you get that? So this is an array of just the keys. So given the current key, which we know is keys square bracket I, then we could use that key inside meal square bracket to get the thing we want. It's a little bit like a multi-dimensional array in this context. Cool? Cool. For loops are ugly. I don't like them. I don't want to do it that way. I want another way. No. Loops are so 2014. Earlier than that, man. ES5 introduced this stuff. So I heard something about map a moment ago. Let's talk about map.